Thank you very much, D-Man. And another fantastic, fantastic game. We'll get to the team fights and the crazy action a little bit later. I want to go back to picks and bans, talk about the fact that Fizz was first picked by Cloud9, and Xpeke picked Twisted Fate into Fizz. That is a detrimental lane matchup. It's one that Peck has lost before in the past. And I think he was hoping to play the map a little more, but it just didn't work out for them.
And I think that comes with confidence from his first game. He outplayed high and won lane pretty significantly in the first game, and I think he thought, oh, this guy's not that good. I can get away with a not-so-good lane matchup, but obviously he just couldn't pull it out.
I think this really showcased the strengths of Meteos' jungle style as well. Last game we saw, of course, High getting down early and then struggling not getting those blue buffs, and Xpeke getting that really big lead on Kassadin. But the opposite of that is kind of what we saw this game. With the solo kill onto Xpeke early, Meteos was able to become an absolute monster. He had over 4,000 HP on Nocturne by the end of the game, over 100 CS up over Cyanide as well. When that mid lane is winning, what he can do from the jungle is magic.
The issue with the mass farming jungle is just that the other jungle has to capitalize on the ganks, and I want to congratulate Cloud9 there because they really play well, knowing that the enemy jungler is aiming to gank and is not farming, and they've dodged a lot of these ganks the entire game.
So talk to me a little bit about the junglers as we're on there. We're talking about the early game because we've seen some 3v1 lane pushes there, and you know, Cloud9 try to push the top lane, they try to push the inner turret down as well, but they sort of were half committed, half in, half out. I know you had some thoughts on that, Krappo.
I really feel for Fnatic. Next game they should try to match and go for two versus two lanes and 1 against 1 because they had the better level 1. They could have scouted ahead, they could have gotten wards out. If you match Cloud9 2 against 2 and 1 against 1, I think you're going to come out ahead. Especially the way Cloud9 pushed their level 1 was really good. They went for early 3v1, early push, which means you kill one wave, pushing the next. Compared to Fnatic, they were trying to zone balls of XP, and they went for stacked wave push, which is really bad if the enemy team just pushes on through.
And I can't help but be disappointed that, you know, in the first game I pointed out, Pushu's Sork Boots build only works when he's ahead. This is a game where he needs MR. He's up against double AP, and both these guys rushed Sork Shoes. He instantly exploded multiple times because like 30 minutes into the game, he has no MR items. He's sitting at base MR plus runes. And really, if he just had built a Negatron Cloak or early Mercs, none of that would have ever happened. He would never have gotten chunked, and those teamfights would have went the way of Fnatic.
He also built a Lost Whisper right after Triforce, and I think that's the point where he should have actually invested into a Negatron Cloak, because I don't think Mercury Threads are as gold efficient against a team like this, because you don't need the tenacity. Fizz is going to blow you up, like his ulti is going to hit you. Tenacity doesn't affect you as much.
Yeah. We're getting set up for game 3, so just closing thoughts there, Freak.
Yeah, so what I actually wanted to talk about was some of the team fights and how those were set up, because when you look at Peke's build, he was building very defensively to not die to Fizz, was trying to be a split push nightmare. It took a very, very long time to set up and never really got to be useful. But comparing the composition, specifically how the junglers were set up, so Fizz and Nocturne get to dive in there and kill off Pushu. They get to survive through the Zyra Peel and the Corki Burst, whereas Cyanide's Elise never gets to do anything because he's under-leveled, he's under-farmed, and Pushu, even though, or not Pushu, sorry, but Sneaky, even though he's supposed to be get hit by Zac and Elise, gets hit by just Zac, who gets peeled by Thresh, and then you have an AD carry who's shooting and an AD carry who's Zed. Or an AD carry who's dead, rather. Meanwhile, Rumble's tossing. Yeah, there was no Zed. Unfortunately, that was banned.
Zed makes people dead. So
but yeah, the back lines were completely different due to how well the front lines for each team performed.
So I got a little wrong. We do have a little bit more time to talk about these fights, and I want to ask you guys now. We missed. Some of the ultimates were a bit sloppy. There's, you know, these team fights were not as crisp, not as clean as maybe game 1, which were a lot more sort of decided. And we've seen both teams trying to flank, coming from the sides, coming from different angles. And my question is now, was that teams being caught out? Was that team simply reacting? You know, because that was a high kill game. I think it was like 18-13 towards the end.
European teamfights generally go a lot slower. When you saw a bot lane where Cyanide was trying to, Soaz was trying to zone with his elastic slingshot, normally any EU team would back off there and re-engage after it was down. This is free bait for Cloud9. They like diving in with 2 people. They had the hook on Zac there, and then they just dove, and nobody's ready for that.
The barrier is really on, or the burden of the fight is really on Cloud9 to get in onto TF and Corki. And TF is really easy to get on, but you saw Xpeke really smartly. He built double move speed, Twin Shadows and Lichbane. That is kind of a defensive stat for him, so he can easily kite Fizz and Rumble. But you saw Pushu, once again, he didn't build any MR, and he had to play really far back or just risk instantly dying. And with Fnatic's 2-threat comp, because they have a Zac top, it's really hard for you to dish out damage when one of your carries has to play really back.
And the other thing I want to point out as well is you talked about kind of how the team ports were set up, is basically it's you know, Cloud9 didn't play all that well against Twisted Fate. They got caught out multiple times. And then as you had sort of mentioned, Doublelift, the rest of the game is Cloud9 trying to find openings and just diving in and going hard. And those are the two types of fights that you kind of found, was a hardcore engage on one side and getting caught on the other.
All right, my question to you guys now is, who is going to win Game 3? After watching the first two matches, does anybody want to change their picks? Doublelift, I'm asking you. Cloud9 or Fnatic?
God, like, I can't stress this enough. Just an item choice would have won this game for Fnatic in my mind. So I really have to say, I'm switching my pick to Fnatic, dude. Like, I can't justify. I'm sorry.
Man.
I cannot justify this win on Cloud9's part. It was, to me, Cloud9 played really well. They played solid. They're a world-class team. But Fnatic really just had these small issues that eventually snowball. I don't expect Xpeke to get first blooded again. 1v1 mid. No way that's going to happen Game 3.
Quickly down the line, Fnatic or Cloud9?
Fnatic.
Fnatic or
Yeah,
Cloud9?
Fnatic for me as well, especially because they've got that blue side, and if they mimic the same pick and ban process, I think they did really well in Game 1, and they could take it here.
And Freak?
I also think Fnatic, I think High's champion pool is getting a little stretched thin, and that's a big risk for these guys.
Well, guys, we need to take a very quick break, but when we return, it is the third and final game in this quarterfinal matchup between Fnatic and Cloud9. The next team to take out a Nexus will lock down the first spot in this weekend's semifinals. It's all on the line for these two squads when the Season 3 World Championship returns. Stick around, guys.